It all started with one simple snowman, a harmless tradition my grandpa had kept for over 20 years. But this winter, the new HOA president decided it was against community standards. She wasn't just any neighbor. She was Karen, the kind of woman who measured lawns and reported kids for sidewalk chalk. When Grandpa refused to take down his snowman, she made it personal. And what happened next? Let's just say karma came faster than the snow could melt because that night, she crashed straight into the very thing she tried to tostery. My grandpa, Walter Hayes, wasn't the kind of man who made noise in the neighborhood. He was quiet and polite, the type who waved at everyone from his front porch even when half of them pretended not to see him for over 2 decades. He'd lived in the Willow Creek subdivision, a picture-perfect community with manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, and neighbors who smiled more for reputation than kindness. Every December, Grandpa built the same snowman in his front yard, not just any snowman. It wore his late wife's red scarf and a faded black hat she'd bought him back in the 80s. For him, it wasn't decoration. It was a memory, a quiet tribute to the love of his life. The neighbors used to love it. Kids would stop to take photos, and even the older residents would comment on how it made the street feel alive during the cold, gray winter months. But things changed when she moved in. Karen Ellis, the new HOA president. She was the kind of person who believed rules existed to make her feel important. Within weeks of taking over, she'd already sent half the neighborhood warnings. Improper mailbox paint, Christmas, lights too bright, trash, bins visible for more than 20 minutes. Everyone whispered about her, but no one dared challenge her authority. No one except Grandpa. He wasn't rebellious by nature, but he had principles. When the first notice arrived claiming his snowman was an unauthorized display structure, he laughed it off, thinking it had to be a mistake. But the next morning, there was a bright orange violation tag stuck in his mailbox, followed by a $75 fine. That was the moment something changed in him. The gentleman who used to hum while shoveling snow stopped. Smiling, he started keeping a file of every notice she sent, every threat she scribbled in bureaucratic language. It was no longer about a snowman. It was about control. Neighbors began whispering again. Some said Karen was targeting him to make an example. Others thought she just didn't like being ignored. But to Grandpa, it felt personal. And when she escalated her harassment, sending photos, letters, and even threatening legal action, we knew she wasn't going to stop until she got what she wanted. But what she didn't realize was that Grandpa wasn't as harmless as he seemed. He'd spent his entire life fixing problems, solving puzzles, and quietly standing his ground. So when the next snowstorm came, and Karen started circling the neighborhood like a hawk with a clipboard, Grandpa began building his snowman again, this time with a plan that would turn the tables completely. By mid-December, the neighborhood looked like a Christmas card. Glowing lights, wreaths on every door, and the air heavy with that quiet peace that comes right before a storm. But in Willow Creek, that storm wasn't made of snow. It was named Karen. She'd already fined 3 families for leaving unauthorized decorations, past curfew, and ordered one man to remove his inflatable Santa for being too tall. Every house had become a potential violation, waiting to happen. It was like living under surveillance, the kind where your holiday spirit could cost you $100. Grandpa didn't say much, but I could tell he was planning something. He'd started jotting notes in a small leather notebook, times, dates, even photos of Karen's car making rounds through the neighborhood late at night. He called it evidence. When I asked what he meant to do with it, he just said, "Sometimes you don't fight fire with fire. You let the fire show who it really is." That week, the snow came heavy and fast. It covered everything, the roofs, the driveways, the memories of a summer that felt a lifetime away. Grandpa spent an afternoon in his yard, building his snowman like he always did. But this time, it wasn't just 3 snowballs and a scarf. Hidden beneath that snow was something Karen would never see coming, not dangerous, not harmful, but clever. He built it over a sturdy wooden base, the same crate, he used for gardening tools. Then he packed it tight with snow, leaving it solid and unmoving even under pressure. To anyone passing by, it looked like a perfectly normal snowman, cheerful, harmless, almost nostalgic. But to Grandpa, it was a test, because he knew Karen's obsession had gone beyond rules. She wanted submission. He wanted to win. 2 days later, the first warning letter came again. Same words, same signature. You are hereby instructed to remove the unauthorized structure. Immediately. Grandpa ignored it. Then came the second letter, this one threatening legal escalation and removal by HOA, enforcement. He still ignored it. And that's when things got personal. That evening, around 7:45 p.m., Karen stopped her silver SUV in front of Grandpa's yard. The sky was dark, the snow reflecting the yellow of the streetlights. Saw her from my window, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other. She started taking pictures, zooming in on the snowman like it was a crime scene. Then she shouted, something we couldn't hear, stomped back to her car and drove off. But the next morning, there was another fine, $200 this time, taped right to his front door. Grandpa didn't even flinch. He just smiled, folded the paper neatly, and added it to his growing file. The following nights, Karen's car kept circling the street, headlights off, creeping slow, her silhouette visible through the frosted windshield. It was no longer about HOA rules. It was about pride, ego, and obsession. And then came the night of the crash. The snow had stopped, falling around 10 p.m., leaving the roads slick and icy. The temperature dropped so low that the air itself seemed to freeze mid-breath. Grandpa and I were inside, the fireplace glowing faintly, when we heard it, the faint rumble of tires skidding, a harsh rev, and then a thunderous crash. We ran to the window. There, in the middle of the yard, headlights still blazing, was Karen's SUV, nose first into the snowman. The front bumper was bent, the hood crumpled, and steam rose from the grill like smoke from a defeated dragon. And the snowman, still standing. The crate base had held firm, absorbing the impact like a shield. It wasn't destroyed, it was triumphant. We rushed outside. Karen was out of the car, furiously kicking at the snow, screaming that Grandpa had set a trap and that the HOA would press charges. Neighbors started emerging from their homes, drawn by the commotion. Phone, cameras flicked on, voices whispered. Within minutes, half the street was watching the scene unfold. The all-powerful HOA president, standing in the wreckage of Heron Fury. Grandpa didn't say a word. He just stood there, calm as ever while she ranted and waved her phone, threatening lawsuits and citations. Then, he quietly pointed at the street. Camera installed by the HOA itself, the one she had approved, the one facing directly at his yard. Her face went pale, because she knew what that meant. Her own surveillance footage had just captured her intentionally, trespassing and causing property damage to enforce a rule that didn't even exist. That night, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Screenshots, clips, speculation. Everyone had an opinion. By morning, the story had spread beyond Willow Creek. Karen had lost her authority, her reputation, and most importantly, her grip on the community she'd tried to control. But the fallout, that way still to come. By sunrise, the whole neighborhood knew. Phones buzzed with video clips, screenshots of the wreck, and whispers that the all-powerful HOA president had just destroyed her own SUV, trying to destroy a snowman. But while everyone laughed behind their curtains, Grandpa stayed quiet. He wasn't interested in revenge, just justice. The HOA board called an emergency meeting that afternoon. Karen showed up late, visibly shaken, her hair still disheveled from the chaos the night before. When she walked in, every pair of eyes turned toward her, the room that once hung on. Her every word now hummed with quiet judgment. The board began the meeting, formally discussing property damage, trespassing, concerns, and potential misconduct. But the real evidence came when Grandpa stood up. File in hand, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult or accuse. He simply played the footage, the same HOA security camera she'd installed. The room fell silent. On screen, there she was, headlights off, creeping down the street, pulling into Grandpa's yard, and slamming her SUV straight into the Snowman. Every second was clear, time-stamped, and undeniable. The HOA lawyer leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. "Mrs. Ellis," he said finally, "you've violated at least 4 bylaws, including trespassing, harassment, and property damage. This board can't overlook that. When the board voted, the result was unanimous. Karen was removed as HOA, president effective immediately, fined for damages, and placed under review for civil liability. And Grandpa?" He just smiled, folded his papers, and thanked the board for their time. He didn't gloat. He didn't celebrate. He just walked out of that room with the quiet satisfaction of a man who'd stood high ground and won. The following weeks in Willow Creek felt different, lighter, freer, almost human again. The HOA, stripped of its tyrant, quietly restructured. A new president stepped up, someone reasonable, kind, and the sort of neighbor who actually believed in community. They tore up half the unnecessary bylaws, cut down the ridiculous fines, and reinstated a little thing everyone had forgotten. Trust. Karen moved out a few months later. Word was she'd sold the house at a loss, couldn't stand the whispers, the glances, the reputation that clung to her name like frost that wouldn't melt. Grandpa, though, stayed. Every winter after that, he built his snowman just as he always had, and every year, more neighbors joined in, front yards lined with snowmen wearing scarves, hats, and smiles, each one a silent tribute to standing your ground, to not letting power crush something pure. One night, as we stood on the porch watching the snow fall again, I asked Grandpa if he ever felt guilty about what happened. He looked out across the quiet street, the glow of Christmas lights, the laughter of kids playing in the distance, and said, "No, son. She built her own storm. I just let the snow show the truth, because in the end, Grandpa didn't just rebuild a snowman, he rebuilt the neighborhood's courage. One froze, smile at a time."